everybody. Hopefully the video is working for you now. I don't have any viewers again because I just restarted. If y'all could let me know if there's visuals this time. I'm so sorry we had to kill the stream. I think there's a problem on Twitch's end. And let's just keep rolling for a second. All right. And do we have visuals? I gotta wait for people to jump back in. Yay! Thank you. We finally have someone confirming that the video is working. So sorry about that, guys. And it seems like we're back on track. That was the weirdest thing. No drop frames or anything. So, I don't know what you guys missed. Hi again. Alright, Amanda's back in. It looks like we can keep going and everybody's good now. Sorry about that. Okay, I do not know what you missed. We were fanning these guys out by changing the start angle, and we have not yet shaped anything else. I'm just gonna start from there and hopefully we'll stay on this time. If not, well, it'll be kind of fun. Alright, we want to change up the size of these guys. So I'm gonna go ahead straight into the length. I have these all in absolute right now, and percent of the parent right now is going to be based on the size of. I am fine with using the absolute number, and we're just going to add a little bit of variance in here. One of the fun things on the tree zone is that you can use the curve across the zone to actually change up, and that's just going to be variant numbers in there. Or we can actually grab the variance settings and add them in there. We just kind of want not all the same. Oh great, some of you guys missed the beginning anyways, and that's totally cool. There we go. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of a different setting here. We're gonna go ahead and switch up how these guys are curling. Now, this is new for V9, but you're going to be able to do it in V8 by adding a force. Forces are your friends when dealing with grass, because you just get a whole lot of flavor from bending these different ways. On the grass settings, though, in V9, we wanted you to be able to do parent curl without having to add a force to the scene, and adding variance to these really helps switch up the shapes. This is changing the direction, the spine. You add this guy in there. I'm just going to go to the top for a second. They have to be bent a little bit in order to see this force, but if you added, I added two in there apparently. Gnarl, you'll see that corkscrew, but they are turning left and right. And got a little dance thing going on again. Things that we, oh, excuse me. A lot of times we want to just completely change up the direction of these guys. So what we're going to do, instead of gnarl, swooping different directions. So, I don't know if that's the technical term. Swoops. Right is going to curl it sort of like the curl. We're going to do the same thing with out. And if you had a larger section of this, like a ton of grass, one of the cool things you can do here is, instead of using the uniform variance where it's a lot of tiny noise, where all of your adjustments are going to be even bigger. So if you had a ton of grass in here, we can do that if you would like to see it. Let's go ahead and move this all the way out to the last. There we go. And you'll be able to grass kind of swoop down. It's really easy to see this with size. So if we change this instead of to uniform, where they're all doing kind of up, down, little stuff, and change it to the, it's also the turn that's happening there. Let's make it even more apparent with the length. Let's change that scale up. I'm just going to put it on a 10. See our sections now. Hopefully you can see now I've got like a dip there where I've got some taller sections there. We can also just make this super extreme. My computer might have had a moment there. Hello everybody. They get fatter as they get larger as well, and then I've got my skinnier ones in there. Alright, we're gonna make our small file again just for the sake of things. I'm gonna take out the adjustments that I just made and I'm gonna put it back on 0.2. I actually don't mind that I changed up the length that way. I super slowed down my computer just now because I'm working in high resolution and I put 8 million in there and my computer survived, but obviously we don't want that many polygons in the scene. I bet someone out there was sweating and wondering if the modeler was going to crash. But we made it. I'll go ahead and get rid of all those. And one of the things that we're immediately going to do after we make this a smaller patch is after you don't need to see the spines, you can put them on spine only and they don't count anything. So we've got 700,000 in here. We would be putting these on skin and we would be putting these on spine only. And that's going to help us. You're still going to be able to see the spine if you need it. You can always hit the node mode and see the spines that way, or turn them back on if you need them. And there we go. Does anybody have any questions so far, or just kind of like y'all are stalling around for the adventure? Michael was. I thought so. Well, we're gonna go ahead and do a quick save just for Michael. Just because it's nice to not crash during the stream and lose all of your work. Alright, let's go ahead and give our grass blades some shape. Done any of the shaping of the actual blade yet. So we're gonna go back to our frond. We're gonna hit the geometry tab and we are going to change the start boundary. I'm just going to push it down. It looks like I lost just a few frames, but we seem to be back on track. I'll make sure everything's happy. We're still good on the internet. I was worried there that it had bumped me onto the other. Alright. We're gonna go ahead and shape our actual frond blade here. One of the things you'll notice is that if you have a lot of varied shapes, like you're using a lot of different blades, you might want to put them on separate fronds, but for width. And down here on the end, I'm just going to taper that off a little bit so it's round off. And I'm going to do the same with the top by adding a point in there. And yes, it's good old Spectrum internet. Sorry, I wasn't zoomed in on the tip there. This is just kind of shallowing it off. I kind of, without that little extra help, this material is kind of funky in the end. Here we go. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the PPR material, and oftentimes if you are making this for a particular scene, which makes the most sense when you're making grass clusters in general, you really want it to blend in with the bottom environment. And the lighting on that is also pretty important. You never really see any specular highlight in grass when you're looking at the top of the glass. You see it on the top of a grass and not the bottom. And so something that's going to help this blend is a couple of gradients in here. I like to cheat and use the one in the AO. I will actually swap this out for a AO that I've made with a gradient on the bottom. I'm going to use this subsurface map that is basically the same gradient there, but it's a little bit of a cheat there. It just makes it really dark on the bottom when I compute the AO. That will help blend. We also want to cut down on the available light down there. So a lot of times in our gloss map, you might have a higher value up here where it's white and a lower value down here, even though it's not quite, definitely not what you would want on a leaf on a tree, but it works for grass. So if you're going to do that, I'm going to reuse, I'm going to be real lazy here because I do have that gradient kind of made in the subsurface amount. We really just want the shade here that was inverted. So we're going to bring down the max and get our gloss value right for the top. We're kind of looking at that highlight there, and then we're kind of looking at the contrast there. So I can make this real dark and get rid of all the light that's going to bounce down there, and then kind of bring it down just a little bit. We're going to see how we did there. I already told you about the normal map, that sometimes less of a normal map is better in this case. We also want to do the same thing with the subsurface. Subsurface can really make or break your shot. And so, excuse me, when we're taking a look at these guys, that nice filtered light coming through, I think I pulled up a picture earlier of just how much light we actually get through the tip of these guys. And you want to kind of keep that in mind. This is a different blade, and the subsurface is down a little bit farther. I might kind of boost it up a little bit. Again, same thing with these guys. Sometimes a gradient is far more effective than all of the information that we have going on in here. I'm being real lazy and just using the same black and white map. But because these textures are just going to be so small, and there's not a whole lot of detail we preserved there, we're able to get, I guess, just the same amount of work. You can make the gradient yourself if you want to just add that in Photoshop. And I'm gonna just checking. Just making sure it's caught up on the stream chat. Y'all can complain about internet, that's great. And we're just I'm just moving the light back and forth to see how we did there. One thing that if you would definitely want to do is you were going to match your scene, which is pretty important for grass. Grass really needs to match the environment as best as possible. In V9 we have the HDR settings, and so I have a 16K huge Chinese garden HDR that we used for last week actually. And so if I was going to set this in sort of like a garden setting, my eye is watering. I'm not crying. We would kind of want to look at the light that way. And one of the cool things in here is that if you need to adjust how much light is coming through there, you might actually use the scalar a little bit until we're happy with it. The other thing we want to do is make some specular highlights on here, and we're going to do that with the lighting controls inside of SpeedTree. One of the things I like to do here is turn it on the material and specular. There we go. And I think that was the wrong one. Lighting specular. I got confused for a second there. Lighting specular is what we want to look. And we want to kind of look at our big highlights. So these guys right here that are showing up. We really want light on the tips of the grass. So one of the things we can do here with the frond is go over to our lighting. I'm going to geometry down at the bottom. It's also on the material tab, I believe. It is for leaves, not for that one. Scrolling down to our lighting tab. And hi Max, glad you could join us. We are going to actually align the lights. You might want to put the normals on for this. You can put show normals, and right now they're teeny tiny, and I probably could have fixed that ahead of time. Now they are pointing out towards the viewer, and a lot of times for grass we want them to be pointing up and out, so that the person that is up here is going to catch a lot more of the light. Hang on, there we go. Alignment. Spread is kind of like puffy, but it's along a longer base, so but that out the normals and push them out from another. We don't really want spread on one. We just want to use the alignment. It's so hard to see. Let me try to zoom in for you. We're gonna look at one blade. That'll help us out a little bit. I'm actually gonna just kick out the number of blades that I have in the scene just because I've got so many. There we go. Right now I've got the back faces were this way and the light was not shining on them, so I wasn't getting anything out of that. There we go. Okay, so we got these black leaves and we kind of want to do something about that. I pushed the alignment all the way up and it was a bad look for it. You can see that highlight going there. So I'm looking at the, there we go. My steering is atrocious. How are you guys putting up with this? We want the tips of the leaves, we want our blue marker to be pointing up. And so we're going to get those in their correct position. And we're going to use our profile curve here to turn the lighting back down, or not off, I guess, on the bottom of the... So, got some occasional skips. Looks like I dropped a few frames there. And we have a question about compatibility. I'm using the Cinema modeler. This modeler is going to be able to export out to many third-party apps, depending on what you're using. This can export FBX, Olympic files, raw data files, file export mesh. There we go. And SpeedTree Engine, which is another software that we have. I think that about covers what we've got there. So yes, you can use this in, excuse me, you can use this program to work on stuff in Blender, Max, or Maya, or any of our other 3D modeling softwares. Also interchangeable is if you are sculpting something in ZBrush, you can export that out and bring it inside to SpeedTree. We are very app friendly. We want to play well with our other tools that you guys have. Yeah, and Amanda is asking you if you have a specific one in mind. We can definitely check on that for you. Excuse me. And okay, let's get back to our lighting. I've got these guys kind of pointing up down here. We're going to grab our alignment here and actually grab the bottom of the leaf and turn that alignment back off. And so the middle part of the leaf is kind of pointing out. The top part of the leaf is pointing up. Might have done that a little bit too extreme, and it's probably going to be better to do a softer curve there. I'm looking at this highlight and how it's lighting there and just kind of seeing what I'm getting out of it. You can turn off the light on the bottom by wrapping these down, which I do kind of want to do. I want to make no light reflect on the bottom. I'm actually pointing the normal back down. Excuse me, should have gotten some water before we started. And that is correct. Roger Cabo. I don't know how to say some of you guys' screen names. this, because I have, I didn't go too extreme on that. Let me explain what I did there. With my lighting alignment, I didn't go very extreme on the top to point straight up. Let me zoom in again. I need to remember where to change the marker in the preferences. I'm sure it's in preferences somewhere. And Luciano, that's definitely true. Using the cluster method is what we're going to be doing next week. Next week we're actually going to make a couple of different parts for different grass things to add on as well, instead of just doing this. This is a very high poly method that you would never have in games. One of the advantages of doing leaves inside SpeedTree is if you are using a Quixel Atlas or something like that, where it's all atlased into one sheet, they've sort of baked down that light material into that sheet, so you can't do a lot of specific lighting. Whereas if you create the individual blades inside of SpeedTree and then send it out with our expert material, you're going to have a lot more freedom on how it lights, not just the information that was in the original scan. Okay, how to add more segments to a mesh and make it smoother? I got a question coming in. On these guys, you would need to go back because I have set them on a frond. So if I'm bending these, so right now the frond's sitting on, I'm going to turn this back on standard mode. Since the frond is sitting on the spine, the more I bend these, the more you're going to notice the mesh. So let's just use gravity for a second and swoop those down. You can see that I've got a ton in the actual spine itself, and then the frond itself is getting a little too twisty there. So if this is not smooth enough, excuse me, we would want to go back and to our cutout. I've added 19 in each. One of the things that would really help this out if I'm going to turn it that much is having some more in the middle here, so you could add more points in here. Earlier we made this cutout and the zigzag was the pattern we were going for there, and that is, we're not going to fold these because they're leaf blades, and then I'll keep our polygons down just a little bit. So my throat is so dry. Apparently can't talk for more than 20 minutes without being over. So we would save that one out if we wanted it. I don't really think we need it because we're not doing too extreme on those one blades. So I'm just going to keep it where we've got it. And I'm going to turn the gravity back off. We didn't use this yet. We do kind of want to add some gravity in there, like to add a little variance in there. And we're going to add our clusters back. Excuse me. And we just took out our blades. You can add as few or as many. I like to have one file that sort of I can keep working on and make my small cluster first, and then go back and add the bigger cluster. So let's just add a couple more in there, and we're back to where we were. The other thing that we have is we have our frond texture that's sitting on the spine, and we can also rotate those guys. Right now I've got, we didn't do that, and so they're all kind of spiraling out the same direction. And we're going to use the curve on this. Give me 1 second. There we go. And making sure I'm caught up to date. Let me grab, I'm just turning the mic off for 1 second. Sorry guys, I got a glass of water because I absolutely was dying. Okay. And how are the movements exported? With joints or PLA? We talked about setting the excuse me, the wind in the very beginning. I'm probably gonna circle back around to that today, so I will answer your question, but I'm gonna come back to it. So I definitely just went and got a glass of water so that I don't die. Apparently can't talk. Cough drop. I would take honey. Tea. The afternoon's a good time for tea. There we go. All right, if you are not working on a spawn, I'm going to go back to the segment question here. If you guys have if you're actually just using tubes, which is totally okay for VFX, I'm going to hide these for a second. We're going to turn the tubes back on. I'm going to spin the skin. I'm going to put these on polygons. And now they are back. You can change the amount of, if you need to make these smoother, by hitting the segment tab. I'm going to turn the normals back off because they are super annoying. And here we go. Water. This post has been sponsored by water. Alright. You can go to render scribes and actually take these out this way. So they're based on the relative length of the branch right now, which is great for something like a grass blade because you're going to have lots of different height variances in here. So I would probably, to make sure that they're always smooth, say that I always want 2 length segments and then put some sort of relative number in there that will compensate for the length. You can have all the polygons when you're working with a frond here that will be really smooth, and so I usually have it up a little bit more just so I can play around with it. But they are going to have to match the number that you put in there, or you'll see them not exactly being exactly kind of like your spine. Hopefully that makes sense. I was worried for a second there that I didn't remember to turn the mic back on. So, I'm having a day. We're gonna tip this back to spine only. One thing you might realize, sorry, I should show you this. When you're working in so close to something, a lot of times the tree is actually, you're so close to the zone that it's easy to get turned around or unlocked on there. The images on the stream, got a question if this is an actual SpeedTree model. Yes, you can actually purchase this. This is the fescue grass. I'm gonna open up, these files are mine for the stream, but these files are all available in the grass pack for VFX. Just wanted to show you a little bit. We got some trampled in here, and we've got the little weeds on top. A lot of mixing and matching. The only other thing I want to show you before we move on to some of our other examples, I think they're gonna link you if you do want these textures. This pack actually has a lot of textures in it. Honestly, grass is probably one of the more easier ones to not have textures for and just create your own. Okay. So if you've got more than one things going on in here and you want to hide the bottom area here, you're gonna have to have a double set. So a lot of times what I do is I get the first one right. Excuse me again. I copy and I paste. This is another technique that I would use if I was making to just have a clump and then a smaller section. I might have a lower section. I might move these around a little bit. So I'm just going to change the seat up by changing the rotation. I might change the start angle a little bit and push them farther out. They got really, really tiny here. When you make your length smaller and they're matched, you might have to go to the frond itself and actually make the material a little wider so you can see it. To hide and blend the base material if you have polygon stands for it. Excuse me. I'm going to change the frequency and just make a couple more of those. Hard to see. And this is our little patch. Oh, and I was talking about it and I got distracted from coughing. Sorry about that. On the frond itself, we want to turn the actual material. So we're going to actually use the roll. It's on a profile curve right now. So right now the bottom is set to not move and the top twist movement is really good for hiding the fact that this is a 2D very, very flat blade. And you can get the light to kind of mix up a little bit better. Just the smallest amount of shape to the actual frond by using the fold and the curl. Excuse me. Gravity on these, because they're so long, will not actually do they're pointing up. Gravity is going to point towards the ground. So these are going to kind of just smush our texture. We don't really want that. Excuse me. And, hello, Nito. A little bit of these guys just to see what our shape does. You'll notice that as we curl our texture, it changes the highlight we get on the grass. We really want a bigger highlight. We don't have enough, sorry, I think I did that. When we did our cutout earlier, we did not make a middle cut going down the middle. So fold is not going to do anything for us because all of our cuts are zigzagged. But curl should get us a little bit. Let's just see if we like it. It's going to kind of hide the fact that those are flat again. It feels a little fat at the end of the day, but that's okay. And I'm just going to check out what we look like across the seasons. You would want to do all of this and actually change, copy paste so that your PBR is set up throughout. But that is your basic grass setup. The last thing that I want to talk about is I've got some extra files in here for stuff you can do when you have to bring in an object and interact with it and then send it back out in the stream. So I've got a couple different things going on here. If you're going to, excuse me. I'll give it a second to load. There we go. This is a Quixel log that I stole mere minutes before the stream started and tossed this into the scene. I have 3 sets of grass happening in here. They're radiating out. But if I was going to do a particular scene, like say I was going to build something out in Clarice, and I had a couple different objects in there that I wanted to grow directly in there, you can use a force. Excuse me. All I've done in this scene is I've added the mesh generator. I've loaded in my Quixel asset, and I've got our our trunks here. Excuse me. You're gonna grab your mesh and you're gonna go to excuse me. Create geometry force from the selected. So this is now my geometry force. I have it set, you could go ahead and click it. Attenuation is on, that's why it looks crazy. I thought the hints turned it off, but apparently it didn't. So I've got attenuation on. So if I move this log farther away now, you'll see that it's no longer influencing it over here. Very satisfying to do. So I wanted these grass blades to just kind of like repel from it a little bit, just like something had dropped it there. So these guys, back to the first generator, I've got it to attract and obstruct. So I've got these grass blades going around it, but they're so short that it gives this little bounce around section here. And it's very simple, very satisfying, but if you were going to build out a scene and make a couple of small clumps, you would scatter with those and then just use those to build in around this. So you do the same scenario if you have a shape that you need to grow on that's not flat, otherwise your grass is just going to cut in and out of the bottom. You would have a file that was like this. Just kind of gonna briefly go over these different overviews here. If you're interested in how to use the force meshes, we use those in the past streams. If you look for our previous ones, like our Halloween one used it, and we'll definitely be doing a lot more on these in the general. This is the other way. I did not mention zones at all. Zones are pretty prominent in V8 and V7. All this is a mesh that I brought in, and I knew that I needed a specific area to grow my grass off. And when you're using the zone as a mesh like this, you cannot control where these blades of grass come off. They're going to come off a surface, but you're not going to have a first and last on here. You're going to have a general placement of scattering these guys on side to this mesh. So a lot less control, but very effective if you have a scene that you're building out where you have a clump and you have small clumps that you can fill in the space and you just kind of layer in that way. But having that extra straight from the base will let you do all of your blend work and get it right inside here before you export it out. Growing over would work too. So how do we do this in SpeedTree? I'm just going to hide this for a second. If you need to do this, you're going to add a zone. I added up. I apparently had everything selected. That's kind of a cool shape. I didn't realize I had everything selected still. I can't believe I did that. We're going to drop the zone on the actual tree window. If I zoom out here, you'll see this little island. This is a space where I can grow something. If I add a trunk tube to my zone, this will sit exactly on the zone. This is really handy for if you need to create a bunch of spines and turn them different directions, but you're not quite getting what you want. Setting up clumps, just like we did in the other grass file. But putting them in the zone will help mix and match that. So if I added a couple of these, just change the first and last there. My zone area is not very big. I could add a couple of these guys and I would get make sure chat. So I could get different sections there. What you want to do if you want to load in a ground area for these grass plates to load on. Let's make these smaller. There we go. Is you click on the zone and you're going to go ahead and pick a mesh for it. Sorry, I'm just going to all, and I'm going to meshes, and we're going to hit enable here. The trunk tube is not going to come off of it anymore because I don't have a mesh. I'm going to just delete those so you don't need it. You're going to load in the mesh that you need. In this case, I had loaded in that little island guy. We want it to show up. So I think that my zone might not be big enough. So we're going to check that out and see if that's what it was. Excuse me. There we go. We don't want to use the actual size because that was a really, really big one. So that was my problem there, was that was too big. Couldn't even see it because my zone was so small. I really only need one of them for what I'm showing you. I don't have the texture on it, and that's fine if you need to assign that there. From here, you would add your trunk. Really, 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 really big one. And just to demonstrate what I said a second ago, when you go to the gen property and you try to control the first and last on these, you're not going to be able to. This is just going to spawn straight out of wherever this is. So you would be able to scatter like that. So this, there we go. Is there a way to generate collision interaction with the character, like in Unreal Engine? Excuse me. Any kind of animation that you do that's like touch bending or that's not a wind. And so that's going to be an extra thing that you would add in a third-party program. Unfortunately, SpeedTree does not have any kind of touch bending just yet. It has everything there that you need to do it yourself, but not an automated version of it. And oh, Amanda got you with some stuff to read up on, so hopefully that'll help out. We're gonna keep going. Like, what do you do when you need to knock out certain ones? I'm just gonna close this one down because we don't need it anymore, and I have a lot open. This one did knock them out, but I've got another one to show you if you're doing like tiles or something. We made it not crashing this time. So, alright, this is just the exact same thing as a log, except I have everything set to do nothing. I've got our mesh here, and it is set to, we don't want to avoid or attract it, we just want to prune these guys out. A lot of times you might have a mesh that's the ground that you spawn stuff off of, and you can use this method, add a second mesh in and have it kind of overlap, I guess, and it'll knock out the grass where you don't need it. Was how we used to do that in V8. This one is set to prune the grass, so all of these guys are they are set to the mesh, and that just knock it out. This is also helpful if you've made a set of grass and you want to bring it back in and layered it in that way. That collision will happen that way. The last one is going to be growing over. That one. Oh, it's very helpful. Thank you, Luciana. This one, we just have our mesh object in here, and the settings are exactly the same as set to attract. On this one, I've got some little tubers, and they are set to crawl over. So in the force settings, I have them actually have a magnet in there, which you can't see right now. The magnet's over here. I've got some tubes growing out towards the magnet, and then I have them set to follow the log. And so these guys are set. You're gonna actually change these. If you guys want to look at the force crawling, you can look at the vines on the wall. This is the same principle here. The only thing that I thought was kind of neat that you should add in there is that you can now align things with the mesh itself. So I've got these coming off, but I always want these to be facing off the spine. So I actually have these guys set to listen to the force as well, so they're aligned with it. So very, very quick, casual. You can do really cool things to have anything in your scene interact with the grass. And we are coming up to the end of this stream. Next week we are going to do the same file but make a super, super low poly games version of it. We're basically going to be making grass in a cluster file and then making small parts for it, which I showed you earlier. I can do an atlas if you guys want to see that. A lot of you guys are pulling textures from a third party and they might be already atlased for you. But we're going to look at how to control the light in both those situations to where it lights well inside an engine. We might actually take a look at our SDK to show you guys off the lighting and how to get it working in there. Alright, I'll leave the stream running for just a second or two. You guys feel free to ask questions. I can jump back over and answer them if I missed anything. But sorry about the interruptions today and just kind of jumping all over the place. But I hope this answers or gives you a good feel for what the program can do. Thank you guys.
Oh,